Hello. Hello, friends. Hello, Dizzy. Happy Monday. Happy Halloween. Welcome, welcome. I have my Halloween shirt on. So, yeah, I didn't dress up, but I did dress up. But just, I didn't dress up, you know. You're eating some 2 p.m. breakfast tacos. I've never had a breakfast taco. What, is it like egg instead of meat kind of thing? That sounds delicious though. I hope you're enjoying. Happy freaking Monday, Halloween. I've never even heard of a breakfast taco. I've heard of breakfast burrito, but I've never, I mean, it makes sense. If you can have a burrito, you can have a taco. But that sounds so good. Oh my gosh. I just made myself a bacon cheeseburger for lunch. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. Maybe it's a southern thing. Maybe. Even breakfast burritos aren't really too much of a thing over here. And I know they're like big on the West Coast. Because that was the first time I ever had one. I feel like I have an eyelash somewhere. I don't know. But breakfast anything is good. Honestly, I love breakfast. It's my favorite meal of the day. But I'm one of those people where I can't eat right away when I first wake up. I have to wait a bit. It's been a day. I have a small migraine, and I've done everything I can to try to relieve it, but it's still there. It's turkey sausage, egg, and cheese. Ooh. Yum. Oh my gosh. What was I saying? I don't know. Not important, apparently. I think I was talking about breakfast. But yeah, happy Halloween. It's the last day of October. I hope it goes away soon. Me too. It's getting better. I think the medicine is starting to kind of kick in, which is awesome. But I had to wait until I got home before I could take it because I worked this morning, which was a bit crazy. I was kind of by myself today. Kind of. Like I still had somebody near me, but it was crazy. It was like the first time. I was so nervous, but it was all right. And I started to get the migraine during work, and I'm like, oh no. Because if you can catch it in time, it won't get too bad. But if you miss that time, it stays for the rest of the day, and it's not good. So I think I missed the time where it would kind of go away, but that's okay. It happens. But it's Monday. It's Halloween. I'm excited. Today we're going to do something I've never done on stream. We're going to read some short stories, some spooky short stories. And I have read them before. I read them actually last year. So, and I remember there were some that were better than others, and I don't remember which ones those were. But I am going to be reading one new one to me, probably first. And it's one of those choose your own adventure books, which I remember were a thing growing up, but I never actually read one before. And this one I think is a spooky one, but I'm excited to try it. And if you don't know what those are, it's a book where depending on what you choose as far as how the story progresses will determine what kind of ending you get. And I think this one said there's like 16 different endings or something like that. So I'm excited. It's gonna be really fun. Robo, hello! Happy Monday, happy Halloween. Not feeling 100% today, but wanted to drop you a Halloween lurk. Oh, well, thank you so much for the lurk. I hope you feel better. Today is just one of those days, I think. It's one of those days, but hopefully you feel better soon. And thank you so much for being here. Happy Halloween. But, and we're just gonna stay on this screen, I think. Of course. Yes. I don't know if I should keep the music on in the background. I would feel weird just having like silence, but I don't know. I don't know what would be better. I don't know if music would be distracting. I was feeling it this morning, so I think you're right. It's one of those days. It's a Monday, 100%. Monday vibes, but you know, that's okay. That Monday has to happen. Somebody had to be Monday, right? Not somebody, but one day of the week had to be Monday. Good to know I'm not alone. You're definitely not alone. 100% not alone. I was saying earlier I have a small migraine, kind of. It's getting better though. It's getting better. Poor Monday, right? Like, I bet Monday is looking at Friday like super jealous. Super jealous. But yeah, glad it's getting better. Me too. Me too. I think the medication is definitely starting to kick in. 100%. Yes. All right. I think I might keep the music on and I'll just kind of lower it so it's more in the background. That way it's still there if we want it. It's still there if we want it. I usually put on a spooky ambiance while reading. Ooh, but music works too. I know. I was trying to find something spooky because that would actually be really good. I wonder if I can find... I just don't know if it would be like okay for copyright. That's the only thing. How would I know? How would I know? How would I even know? Look. I mean, we could just try it and hope for the best. I'm just like looking through just to see if there's anything like a specific, you know, song that I would recognize, but I don't think there is, at least in this playlist that I found. So I might do that. Terror, hello! Happy Monday. Happy Halloween. Thank you for shouting out Dizzy. Yes, of course, if you're not following Dizzy, please go click that link and send a follow on through. Also, thank you for the shout out for Machines. Same thing. Go follow if you're not already. All right, well, maybe we'll just keep the playlist we have going for now. I think it'll be okay. It's low enough. It's low enough. Happy Halloween. I'm ready. We're ready. Let's start. Probably too bright. Let's start our adventure. So I guess it gives like a background at first. It says, you are a cryptozoologist, someone who studies mysterious beasts that haven't been proven to exist. When you see reports that strange creatures known as chupacabras have been spotted in Texas, Puerto Rico, and Argentina, you know you have to see them for yourself. Will you be able to find proof that these shadowy, blood-sucking beasts are real? Discord said you were playing Fall Guys recently. How did Fall Guys go? Oh my gosh, I played so much Fall Guys in the last 3 days because I was trying to get a skin pattern for Halloween because I thought it was really cool. So I wanted to get it. It was frustrating at first because I had to play like about 1 billion of those trick or treat games. And for a little while, I still had no idea what I was doing. But then as I got to understand it, it made more sense. And then I finally got the skin pattern that I wanted. The trick or treat one, yes, yes. But it was fun. It was fun. Frustrating at times, but really fun. So it was good. But yeah, I definitely like Fall Guys though. It's a good game. It's a good game. Oh, and if I don't even know if I said the title of this. It's a choose your own adventure, but like spooky version, and it's called Can You Capture the Chupacabra? So that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. Yesterday I got the jackaloafers. Oh my gosh, those are so cute. I don't think I'd be able to do it though, because there's one challenge that I just couldn't. I don't think I could ever do. I don't think I could do it. But, okay. So, chapter 1 sets the scene. Then you choose which path to read. So, I've never done one of these choose your own adventures. Okay, so we follow the links. The decisions you make will change your outcome. After you finish one path, go back and read the others for new perspectives. We don't have to do that, though. Okay. The most annoying one to me was pressing a button 20 times. Oh my gosh. So I, at first, thought they meant press buttons like on your controller for some reason. And like that doesn't even make sense because not everyone plays with a controller. So I was like, yeah, press different buttons. And I'm like, okay, this doesn't make sense. Like, and then I realized what they meant. And I was like, oh, okay. The hardest one for me was grabbing people, especially the one grab 5 in one round or whatever. I could never do that one. That's the one I'm like, all right, that's not happening. I would be lucky to grab 1 or 2 people, if that. So, all right, are we ready? Are we ready to start our adventure? Chapter 1, On the Hunt. Outside, the wind howls and shakes your tent. Maybe I should just turn the music off. Now that we're starting, it makes more sense to turn it off. So we're just gonna do that. We're just gonna do that. Okay. I think I typically grab 5 to 10 per round. So I was fortunate there. Oh my gosh, Tara, can you get that one for me? Can you do that? Okay. All right. So I'll catch up with chat. I guess I don't know where the choices are in the story. I don't know if it's like at the end of chapters. Just let me log in under you. Yes. But I guess I can just catch up during the choices. I'll be lurking and working. Thank you so much. Enjoy the stories. Thank you for the lurks. Outside, the wind howls and shakes your tent. Cold seeps in through the thin shelter, and you see the white puffs of your breath in the air. No matter how many sleeping bags you pile on yourself, the chill of your surroundings numbs your fingers and toes. Next time, let's go somewhere warm, you say. Warmer than this, at least. Even hot and muggy would be good. Rita, your partner, is just as uncomfortable. She shivers as she holds a mug of steaming hot cocoa in her hands. Aren't there any mythical monsters that live somewhere warm with sandy beaches? She asks with a laugh. You and Rita are cryptozoologists. You travel the world in search of proof that strange, mysterious creatures like Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster actually exist. Sometimes that leads you to remote places. Cold, remote places. They aren't mythical, you say confidently. Otherwise, why would we be here in Alaska in the middle of winter looking for a Wendigo? For 2 weeks, Rita adds. 2 bitterly cold weeks, and we haven't seen anything. Maybe they're hibernating, you say jokingly, like we should be, under lots of blankets. I think it's time to check on more promising leads, Rita says. You know, ones that might take us somewhere warm, like the Bahamas. You admit that your current search has come up empty. You pull out your laptop and use your cell phone to connect to the internet. You and Rita run a website about your adventures as cryptozoologists. You post videos of the places you visit and blog about your discoveries. There's also a chat room for people to contact you and post information about sightings they'd like you to investigate. You click on the chat room link to see if anything interesting has come up. You skip over news about Bigfoot. Been there, done that, you think to yourself. You also ignore a post about a Yeti sighting. That would mean more snow and cold, and you've had enough of that. You keep looking until a couple recent posts catch your eye. What's a chupacabra? You ask Rita. If you had studied Spanish, Rita starts, you'd know that chupar means to suck and cabra means goat. So it's a goat sucker, you ask? Sort of. It's supposedly a vampire-like creature that sucks the blood of ghosts, she explains. Why do you ask? There are 3 reports here of recent chupacabra sightings, you say. Could be worth investigating. Anywhere warm? Rita asks. You look back to the computer screen. Let's see. There's one in Texas, another in Puerto Rico, and the third is down in Argentina. You read them off. Great. All those places are warmer than here, Rita says. Pick one and let's go. All 3 sightings have slightly different descriptions of chupacabras. Each one is more bizarre than the last. The creature in Texas is described as a dog-like beast. The sighting in Puerto Rico mentions a creature that hops around like a kangaroo. And in Argentina, the chupacabra is said to look like some sort of alien reptile. Which sighting do you investigate? Ooh, we have our first choice. I think I might do a poll and let chat decide where we go. Because I think that would be really fun. So let me see. Which sighting should we investigate? Texas, Puerto Rico, or Argentina? And we'll put 2 minutes on the poll. And let me catch up a little bit while you guys can vote. Oh, I love you guys so much. Whenever I hear Wendigo, I just think of the movie book Because of Winn-Dixie, except I think because of Wendigo. So I always think of the show Supernatural because their first, besides the pilot episode, or maybe it was the pilot episode, I think it was like the first episode where they were hunting a Wendigo. So that's what I think about every time. Some cryptozoologist, what's a chupacabra? I certainly didn't think a chupacabra was a new Taco Bell item. No, but it sounds like it could be, though, right? The tastiest goat tacos ever. Oh my gosh. Goat sucker. Imagine. Goat sucker. Going Texas, maybe we can make a quick detour to visit Robo and Machines and Dizzy. Car, hello. Happy Monday. Happy Halloween. I don't know if you can see my shirt. I can't tell. I think you can, though. I think you can. Oh my gosh, thank you for the jump scare. You voted Texas too. I hate to fly. Very true. Very true. Thank you for the shout out for car. It's really early for season. Happy Halloween. Woohoo. Puffy. Hello. Happy Halloween. Happy Monday. Thank you. Thank you for the jump scare. Such a cute look. I tried. I even have little Halloween pigtail braids. Okay, so it looks like we're doing Texas. So now I know what my high school nickname of Chupacabra means. Goat sucker. I love it. I love it. Come visit me. Oh my gosh, that'd be so fun. All because I brought in a goat that one time. All right, we're traveling to Texas. I'm choosing it. So for those of you who are just joining, we are doing our first spooky story of the day. And this one is called, I think it's called Can You Escape the Chupacabra? Something like that. And it's a choose your own adventure. So we are cryptozoologists traveling to Texas in search of a chupacabra. And there was a page back that said there's like a picture of something. It looks like a weird, like alligator, dragon, lizard thing. And it has a little blurb. So I think I'm going to read it. It says Chupacabra reports include a wide range of descriptions. Some reports say the creature looks similar to a wild dog. Others describe the beast as a spiny alien creature. Was that within the reading? Didn't it say something like that? I don't know. But there's like a cool picture. I wish you guys could see it. But anyway, we can get some breakfast tacos while you're here. Yes. Oh my gosh. I would love to try a breakfast taco. It sounds amazing. Okay, are we ready for chapter 2? I don't know how it can be that vastly different unless some people have no idea what a dog looks like. This is true. Chupacabra. I don't know. There's lots of dog-like creatures, I guess. But all right, we're on our way to Texas. We're flying to Texas. And here we go. Chapter 2, Texas Travels. The next morning, you contact the person who posted the sighting in Texas. She's a ranger named Marge. You tell her that you're on your way to investigate what she saw. Then you and Rita pack up your gear. You head to the nearest airport, and you're soon on the way to warm and sunny Texas. On the flight, you do some research about chupacabras. You learn that there have been reports of these goat-sucking beasts spotted from South America all the way north to Maine. There have also been reported sightings as far away as India, Russia, and the Philippines. However, there isn't much physical evidence to back up the stories. Marge's ranch is just outside of Cuero, Texas. Chupacabras have actually become part of local folklore in the Lone Star State. There have been a number of sightings in recent years, and a few people have captured video footage of what they claim to be chupacabras. In the blurry videos, the creatures look dog-like with no hair and gray-green skin. Hopefully, you'll be able to get some better footage to share on your website and prove these strange creatures exist. It takes all day to finally reach Cuero, and then you head to Marge's ranch. It's late by the time you get there. Hello, she greets you when you arrive. Hi, Marge, you say with a wave. This is my assistant, Rita. Assistant, Rita says. You're the one who'd better be assisting me with setting up. Rita pulls a video camera out of the trunk. Where did you see the chupacabra? You ask Marge. This way, near the barn, she replies. As you walk with Marge, Rita follows behind with the camera to record the investigation. Marge leads you over to a chicken coop with a surrounding fence. One section of the fence has been torn down. Did the chupacabra do this? You ask. That's right. It got most of my chickens before I chased it away, Marge replies. Then she points toward a nearby field. It ran off that way. You take some pictures of the fence with your smartphone. Then you turn your focus to the ground around the chicken coop. There are feathers scattered everywhere and splatters of blood in the dirt. You also see some faint tracks in the dirt. Rita walks over and asks, Do you want to help me set up motion sensing cameras around the farm buildings? Maybe we can get video of the creature if it comes back. Or do you want to follow the tracks? Ooh, all right, here's the next. We'll do the next poll. Oh, whoops. So, what do we do next? We either set up video cameras or follow the tracks. Okay. There we go. And I will catch up while you vote. There's dogs, wolves, coyotes, hyenas, foxes, right? Goat sucking. Yes, Car. Car says as if she's very familiar with this pastime. Car knows. Car knows. But yes, hello, Puffy. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Happy Halloween. I hope everybody's having a good Monday so far. I vote take Robo up on getting breakfast tacos. Yes, that would be my vote too. Breakfast tacos all the way. That should be the third vote. That should be the third option. I'm just checking. Ooh, it gets so dark when I pull up or pull down that screen. I really need a second monitor, guys. I really do. So are we going to set up video cameras or follow the tracks? Why can't we do both? Like, why couldn't we do both? I feel like I would do both. Maybe you only have time for one. I don't know. I guess we just have time for one. Ooh, there's also there was another picture that said ranches in Texas often include wide areas of land where creatures can roam unseen. And there's another picture and blurb on the next page, but I'll wait till the votes are in. Oh, I should have grabbed my candy corn. I have candy corn. There's a little bit left. And I'll probably end up eating it today. Smart choice. It is a smart choice. Like already getting hungry. Okay, we are going to set up video cameras. Set up the cameras. Oh, okay, so it just changed. Oh my gosh, it just changed everything. Oh, this is so cool. Okay. That's good with me, Rita replies. You usually just get in the way when I'm setting up the cameras. I don't want you breaking any of my equipment. Wait. I clicked set up video cameras and it followed the tracks. Guys. Wait, can we go back? Oh, shoot. No, we can't. Oh, yes, we can. Wait. So why does it follows the tracks? I'm confused. I tried to fix it and it still follows the tracks. What if we click the other one? Wait, what if we click follow the tracks? Oh, it follows the track. So either way, we follow the tracks. Great. Story gods disagree. Should we set up cameras or follow the tracks? Too bad, nerd. Yeah, the book was like, we're gonna give you a choice, but you don't have a choice. So I guess we're following the tracks. All right. That's good with me, Rita replies. You usually just get in the way when I'm setting up the cameras. I don't want you breaking any of my equipment. With that, you grab your gear bag from the truck and head off to follow the tracks. It's not until the farm is well out of sight that you realize how late it is. The sun is sinking below the horizon and it's growing dark quickly. Just then, you hear a rustling noise in front of you. It could be the creature you're tracking. Then again, it might be a wild animal. Should you continue on? Still loves getting random numbers. I don't know. Look, listen, it was obvious what the choice was, stupid. We're following the tracks. All right, we have another one. We have another one. We have another choice, supposedly. So we either continue following the tracks. Oh, it doesn't let me put in. Okay. We either continue following the tracks or we head back to the farm. Okay, here we go. Make your choice. Do we keep following the tracks or head back to the farm buildings? Do we really have a choice? I don't know. The last time we did, maybe. I mean, we don't know what would happen if we chose the other choice. Choose your own adventure where you only have one choice. Who knows? Who knows? But supposedly we have our choice. And it shows me one of them. I wish it didn't show me. It shows me like 2 pages at once. So it shows me one choice. And last time when there was a picture, we chose one choice and it changed. So I think that was an actual choice last time because it did show 2 different things. Supposedly. Supposedly. But okay, we got 2 votes for continuing to follow the tracks. I feel like it's getting dark. So imagine you're in this situation where we're in Texas. It's getting dark and you're following some tracks of some wild animal or a chupacabra. Is a chupacabra like so that it's like made up? It's like a legend, kind of like Bigfoot, and that's why they were looking at it. Isn't that just like real life? I think it is, Robo. I think it is. It's great because I forgot I had another stream open as my focus is on your stream. So I heard random zombie noises. Oh my gosh. And I was confused. I thought we were chasing chupacabras. And somebody's saying, I don't know anymore. I just know I hate them. I wouldn't follow any tracks. I feel like, so if I was actually in the situation, I would probably head back if it was getting dark and then just follow them the next morning. I think that's what would be my choice if it were real life. But because this is a book, I would keep following the tracks. I follow moose tracks. Oh my gosh, Tara, same. Those are the best kind of tracks. All right, so we're going to continue following the tracks. Oh, when it changed. Okay. So you head across the farmyard to the sheep pen. You look around until you find a good spot to mount the camera. You set it up to get a clear view of the entire pen. Wait. Are we wait a minute. Are we setting up the camera now? How is this? This is weird. This doesn't make sense. Am I just supposed to skip? Am I supposed to skip that part? Maybe that was if I don't know. I don't know how to do this. Maybe that's what would happen if we actually set up the cameras. I don't really get it. Okay. I guess I'm not supposed to read that part now that we followed the tracks. So this is set up super weird. I don't get how this is set up. But we'll pretend I didn't just see that. All right, so we're continuing to follow the tracks. You don't want to miss a chance at possibly seeing the mysterious creatures, so you decide to keep following the tracks. After a while, you hear more strange noises ahead. You feel like you're close to having evidence that chupacabras really exist. You pull a flashlight from your bag and cautiously move on. With the flashlight, you spot the creature's tracks in the dirt and follow them. It's grown very dark. All you can see is what the narrow beam of light of your flashlight reveals in front of you. Suddenly, you hear a snarl to your left. You whip your flashlight around in that direction. You don't see anything except shrubs. Then a twig snaps behind you, and you spin around. You catch a glint of green eyes in the flashlight's beam. There's another snarl to your left, then one to your right, then another right behind you. You spin around and around, trying to see what's circling you, but all you can make out is a shadowy cat-like shape slinking through the darkness. Something is stalking you, and you don't know what it is. You pull out your phone to call Rita, but before you can dial, a heavy weight slams into your back, throwing you to the ground. You hear a snarl. Claws rake across your back and legs. Then the creature bites the back of your neck, and your world suddenly goes black. When people find your body the next day, they question if it was a chupacabra that ended your life or a hungry mountain lion. We died. We died. Well, that's what we get. Who tries to follow tracks in the dark, right? Very intuitive setup, clearly. Yeah. Yeah, chupacabras are another one of those we swear it's real creatures like Bigfoot, Loch Ness. Yeah. and an intelligent, diehard Chicago Bears football fan. Just like Prom. Vampire, not a vampire. So we died. So that was interesting. Okay. Well, that was okay. All right. I mean, it could have been. It could have been. That was really weird. Like I said, I've never done one of those choose your own adventure things. And I'm sure, like, if I had the actual book in hand, it might have been a little bit easier to understand, but it's okay. I do have, so I borrowed this, it's like a series of short, scary stories. And as I mentioned earlier, I did read them last year. Oh, and I guess it gives me like a little blurb about each one, kind of. At least so that way, because I don't think we'll have time to read them all. And I know some are better than others. Oh, it doesn't really say like what it's about. It's just kind of like a note. All right. Well, I'll just have to try to remember. I know the first story was pretty good. But they're just fun little, like, kind of spooky stories. Chupacabra is just like a goat specific vampire. It was hilarious. It was really short and very confusing and strange. And since our main character wasn't a goat, although we may have been, it was never confirmed. We could be a highly intelligent goat that could talk. It may have been a vampire. This is also true. This is also true. Oh, I'm trying to turn the page. Wait. Where? How am I at the end? How am I at the end? I'm trying to. Okay. We're trying to go to the beginning here. There we go. There we go. These online books, man, I don't know. I like the idea that the goat was inside us all along. Like Alien. I've never seen Alien. I don't think. A goat just bleats their way out of our character's stomach. I know. What's that movie? The Witch, I think, has got a really creepy goat in it. That movie was so weird. So weird. Very strange. But the first short story in this is called The Robber Bridegroom, and it was adapted from the Brothers Grimm. And I do remember this one being pretty good. So that goat wasn't creepy. It was just misunderstood. I don't know. It was pretty creepy. Or the goat has a top hat and cane like space balls. I don't think I've seen that either. But that sounds interesting. The robber bridegroom, so a threesome. I mean, it could be. The robber bridegroom. I guess we'll find out. I guess we'll find out. Are you ready? It's very old. I'm not sure how well it holds up. I know it's been out for a while, for sure. But here we go. Second story of the day. The robber bridegroom. There was once a miller who had a beautiful daughter. He was a hard worker, so his business prospered and he grew wealthy. A widower, he gave his only daughter fine dresses and shoes with silver buckles. For himself, he bought a splendid cloak, a broad-brimmed hat with a huge ostrich feather, and a gold ring with a picture of his mill engraved on it, because this had brought him his riches. One night, however, robbers broke into the mill and stole his hat, cloak, and ring, and all the gold he had saved up. Then the old man said to his daughter, "You must marry soon. The world is full of wicked men, and you should have a husband to protect you. But he must be a wealthy man, because you deserve the fine things I can no longer buy you." "I don't care if the man is rich or poor," said the girl Elsa, "as long as I love him and he loves me." "Tut," said her father impatiently. "If the right kind of bridegroom comes along and asks for your hand, I'll let him marry you." Soon enough, a suitor turned up who was dressed in the finest clothes, had boots with silver toes and tops, and rode a grand horse with a bridle trimmed in gold. "I have seen your daughter when she walks through the village," said the stranger, and I want her to be my wife." The miller was dazzled by the man's garments and his horse's trappings, so he said, "She will be your wife." But Elsa didn't love him as a bride-to-be ought to love her future bridegroom. She didn't trust him, and whenever she looked at him or thought about him, a shudder ran through her. The stranger came often to the miller's house. Finally, he said to Elsa, "You're engaged to me, and yet you have never been to see me." "I don't even know where your house is," the young woman answered, feeling a sudden chill in her heart. Her suitor said, "My house is in the depths of the forest." "Then I could never find my way there," Elsa said. "Nonsense," said the stranger. "Next Sunday you must come and see me. I've already invited some other guests who are eager to meet you. So that you can find the way, I'll leave a trail of ashes to guide you." Elsa started to protest, but her father said, "Tut." Then to the richly dressed stranger, he said, "She will be there. I will see to it." Ooh, this one's getting good. The Brothers Grimm is awesome. Yeah, for sure. Speaking of Mel Brooks movies, I just learned yesterday that History of the World Part 2 is a thing that's coming. I don't think I've heard of Part 1. And I think Spaceballs holds up. Elsa, you didn't love him? Let it go. Oh my gosh, terror. Yes. 100%. 100%. Oh my gosh. But like there are some red flags already. Like his house is in the depths of the forest. Right? Who in the depths of the forest? Come on. And he's leaving a trail of ashes. I mean, I guess it's better than breadcrumbs because animals could eat those. But who's gonna ashes? It's weird. It's weird. It's weird. But I guess let's find out what happens. I thought you were gonna say the depths of hell. Both could be true. Both could be true. When Saturday came, the girl was about to start out because her bridegroom had told her the journey would take a day and a night on foot. She felt terribly frightened, though she did not know why. To be sure of finding her way back, she filled her pockets with dried peas and beans to mark her path. At the entrance to the forest, she found the trail of ashes like a thin gray thread and followed it deep into the dark woods. But every step or two, she tossed a few peas and beans to her left or her right. She walked nearly that whole day and night, all the way into the heart of the forest. In the morning, which was almost as gloomy as midnight, she saw a house set by itself in a small clearing. It was so dark and dismal that she feared going any closer, but the trail of ashes led right to the front door, so she went up. Elsa knocked softly several times. When no one answered, she went in. She saw nobody. There was a silence over all the rooms. Suddenly a voice cried, "Turn back, young woman, run away. You've come to a robber's house this day." She looked up and saw that the voice had come from a bird in a cage that was hanging in a window. Once more it warned her, "Turn back, young woman, run away. You've come to a robber's house this day." She was about to turn and run when she heard someone singing in a sweet, clear voice deep in the house. The voice was so gentle and sad that Elsa had to see who was singing. She followed the sound from room to room, all over the house, but they were all empty. At last she reached the cellar door. Descending the steep and narrow steps, she found an old blind woman who was sitting in a corner, shaking her head sadly while she sang mournfully to herself. "Who are you?" Elsa asked. "I keep this unhappy house," explained the blind woman. "But what are you, with such a young, kind voice, doing here?" "I'm to marry the master of the house," said Elsa. "Alas, you poor child, you have no idea where you are. You're in the den of a thief and a murderer. Years ago, I was brought here with a promise of marriage. Instead, the villain blinded me so I could not run away, and has made me work harder than the most wretched slave. Now that I've grown weary and unable to work as I once did, he has brought you here. He will drive me into the woods to die, and he will blind you and make you take my place." "Come with me," urged Elsa. "We'll run away together." But as she was guiding the older woman toward the steps, they heard the sound of rough voices above. When Elsa recognized her bridegroom's voice, her heart sank. But the old woman said, Hide behind those chests in the corner and be quiet as a mouse. Don't move, or everything is lost. Tonight, when the robbers are asleep, I'll fetch you. Then we can escape together." Hardly had Elsa hidden behind a metal-bound chest when the chief robber came to the head of the stairs and bellowed, "Come up and fix us dinner, or you'll regret it quick enough." Can't say that. "My bride hasn't come, and I'm in a rare bad temper. In the morning, I will ride to demand my bride and have no more of these games. Her father is as greedy and foolish man. He will hand her over. And it's going to be harder for her than she can imagine, since she has disobeyed me. Now hurry and set out some food and drink." All through the afternoon and evening, Elsa listened to the roaring and stamping and laughter as the men grew drunk and began to argue amongst themselves. Hidden behind the chest, she trembled and shivered, dreading her fate if she were discovered. Now one chest that was near her hand was partially opened. She could see gold gleaming faintly in what little light fell down through the open cellar door. Carefully, Elsa lifted out several coins, a belt buckle, and a brooch, all of finest gold. Then, reaching in more deeply, she discovered a massive gold ring with the picture of her father's mill engraved on it. She knew in a moment that these robbers were the ones who had stolen all their gold months before. Keeping quiet, she dropped the ring in her skirt pocket. Then she waited, while the sounds above continued, though it was growing later and later. She began to fear the robbers would go on crashing about until morning, and the old woman's plan would fail. Upstairs, however, the blind woman put a sleeping potion in the thieves' wine. Soon, one by one, they lay down and went to sleep, snoring loudly. Ooh, it's getting so crazy. It's a forest in hell, Michigan. It's fine. Turn back, young woman. That robber is my man. Oh my gosh. Nope. Imagine, no. Just, why would she even go in the house? The old blind woman was singing "Shake It Off" by Taylor Swift. It's her jam. Oh my goodness. Elsa, sounds like a sweet deal. Just die already, old lady. Oh, that poor lady. Fear, happy Halloween, happy Monday. Welcome in. Lurking on the way home from work. Oh, I hope work went well. Thank you for the lurk. Forcing a blind old lady to cook seems like a recipe for a disaster. Ooh. Oof. Yes, be safe lurking. All right, are we ready to hear what happened? All right, so they're all asleep, snoring loudly. When they were all asleep, the housekeeper called down to Elsa, "Come quickly, we must hurry." The girl hastily came out from behind the chest and climbed the stairs. She had to step over the sleepers, who lay in rows upon the floor. She was dreadfully afraid of touching them, for fear one would wake, but she got through without mishap. The other woman was waiting by the open door. Elsa took her hand, and they hurried away as quickly as they could from the robber's den. All the ashes had been blown away by the wind, but the peas and beans, being heavier, remained to show them their way in the moonlight. They walked the whole night and reached the mill the next afternoon. There, Elsa told her father everything she had been through and the plan she had for trapping the wicked thief. Then her father hastened to the village to invite all his friends and relations to a feast, while Elsa and the blind woman set out tables and cooked every bit of food in the house. When the robber and his men rode up to claim Elsa, the miller welcomed them with a great show of friendship. "My daughter will go away with you this very day," he said. "But first, share a meal with us in honor of my daughter's wedding." The robbers, who had awakened to find their housekeeper gone and had been forced to scrounge a wretched breakfast for themselves, were only too glad to sit down and enjoy themselves. During the meal, the miller asked each person to tell a story to entertain the other guests. When it came Elsa's turn, she was silent, but her bridegroom said, "Come, my sweet, you must tell us a story too. I won't have people thinking my bride is a dull wit." "Very well," the girl said. "I will tell you a dream I have had. In it, I was walking alone in a gloomy wood, and I came to a solitary house, where not a soul was to be seen. A cage was hanging in the window of one of the rooms. In it was a bird which cried, 'Turn back, young woman, run away. You've come to a robber's house this day. It repeated the same words twice. I don't think I care for this story much, grumbled the bridegroom. This was only a dream, my love, protested Elsa. Then she continued, I heard someone singing a sweet song, so I walked all through the rooms, but they were empty. At last, I went down to the cellar where I found a blind woman singing to herself. When I told her I'd come to marry the master of the house, she cried, Alas, you poor child, you're in the den of a thief and a murderer. Then she told me how he planned to blind me and made me a slave in her place. Be quiet, I've had enough of this foolishness, shouted the bridegroom, rising in his seat. This was only a dream, my love, said Elsa. Then she quickly went on. The robbers returned at that moment, so the old woman hid me behind some chests in the cellar. While they were making merry upstairs, I looked in one of the chests and discovered— Silence, bellowed the bridegroom, drawing his dagger to threaten the girl. But she bravely finished. I discovered a gold ring with a picture of this mill on it, the ring that belonged to my father and was stolen by robbers months ago, and here is that ring. So saying, Elsa produced the ring and showed it to the company. When the bridegroom heard these words, he turned pale as ashes and tried to escape, his men with him. But the guests seized them all and turned them over to the king's soldiers, who took them away and had them hanging for their crimes. That was a spooky story. That was a good one, though. I liked that one. Did you guys like that one? Oh my goodness. Very chilling. Very chilling. I want to try to see. I think the next one was pretty good too, actually. I think the next one was pretty good too. Claps for story. That was a good one. So that was Robert Bridegroom. And the next one is called Jack Frost. I'm going to take a little hydration break, though, in between. But this one is from a Russian folktale. Yeah, and if I remember right, I think this one's pretty good, too. So we can read that one, too. Woohoo! Oh my gosh, it was so warm today at work because I wore this to work. And for some reason, usually this room is the warmest in our house, but it's actually kind of chilly right now, which is nice. It's a nice change from earlier today. But okay. And it's still, we're doing great. We're only an hour in and we've already done 2 stories. So we're doing good. Okay. Are we ready for Jack Frost? From a Russian folktale. Once upon a time, there was a widow who had a daughter of her own and a stepdaughter. Whenever her own daughter said or did anything, the woman would pat her on the head and say, "Clever girl." But no matter how hard the stepdaughter tried, she was always being called foolish or lazy by the woman, who often scolded her and sometimes beat her. The truth of the matter was that the stepdaughter, Maria, was kind and beautiful, while the woman's own daughter, Yagishna, was plain and selfish. But her mother saw only what she wanted to see, so she praised Yagishna continually and made Maria's life a misery. Even an angry storm blows itself out at last, but the old woman's hatred for her stepdaughter never lessened. She said one cruel thing after another, and she was forever grabbing Maria by the collar of her dress to shake her for being such a burden on us. One day, in the dead of winter, the stepmother made up her mind to have done with her stepdaughter. She told her aged servant, "Old man, take Maria into the open field where the bitter frost is the thickest and leave her there. I don't want to set eyes upon her or hear her voice ever again. And if you value your life, don't take her to the warm house of your relatives." The old man begged her not to force him to do such a wicked thing, but the stepmother would not relent. Because he knew that his family would starve if he lost his job, he put the girl on a sled. He tried to cover Maria with an old horsecloth, but Yagishna saw this and snatched it away with a sharp laugh. Do as my mother says, or you'll find yourself and all your children out in the cold along with her, she said nastily. Heavy-hearted, the old man drove Maria out to the open fields near the edge of the forest. He set her down on a heap of snow, hugged her, then hastened home as fast as possible so that he wouldn't see the child's death. Poor little Maria remained where she was, shivering and softly saying some prayers. Suddenly, a strange-looking man came leaping and jumping from the forest towards the girl. He wore a great coat of silver-white fur, a high-peaked cap of the same silvery fur, and boots of white leather worked with silver. He had thick white eyebrows and a bushy white beard, while his nose was as red as an apple. His coat and hat were spangled with diamonds, and silver bells on a white ribbon across his chest jingled. Oh, and silver bells on a white ribbon across his chest jingled as he bounded toward Maria. Little girl, I'm Jack Frost, the ruby-nosed, he said. I bring the winter wherever I go. Oh, she said sadly, welcome, Jack Frost. God must have sent you to take me away from this world. It will be hard to leave, for it all looks so beautiful today. The snow is so white, and the air is so clean, and the ice sparkles like diamonds. Now he was about to touch her body and freeze her to death, but he was moved by her wise words and sad eyes. Instead, he reached into one of the immense pockets of his greatcoat, pulled out a fur coat, and tossed it to Maria. She quickly put it on, then squatted on her heels. Sitting in the snow, she watched while Jack Frost went leaping and jumping back to the edge of the forest. In a twinkling, he was back, carrying something in his arms. Little girl, I'm Jack Frost, the ruby-nosed, he cried. I have brought something for you. Is it my death? Maria asked fearfully. But he had not returned to take her life away. He brought her a chest, heavy and deep, and filled with bedding and petticoats and all sorts of warm clothes. Then Maria sat on the chest in her fur coat, laughing and clapping while Jack Frost danced for her. A third time he bounded away to the forest's edge. This time, when he came back, he gave her a cloak embroidered with silver threads and studded with pearls and diamonds. Wonderingly, Maria drew this cloak over her fur coat. She looked as beautiful and elegant as a grand duchess. For a long time, she sat there happily singing songs, while Jack Frost danced lightly over the sparkling ice and snow. Spooky Bits! Yeah, so today is actually the last day for Spooky Bits, too, because it is the last day of Spooktober. And the next time I'll be streaming, it'll be November. And then we're going to have a Streamiversary, which is going to be awesome. Ice sparkles like diamonds. It does, though. Like, ice is so pretty, but it's not fun to go out in. That's for sure. But winter is so pretty. Like, winter is so beautiful. I love it, but I hate it at the same time because it's cold and awful. But so far this story is kind of crazy. It's so weird because I'm not used to reading short stories. But it's so crazy how you can fit so much into a short story and it goes so fast and you get so much information all at once and it's just over before you even know like what's going on. But let's keep going and find out what happens to Maria. So she's dancing and singing with Jack Frost. Meanwhile, her stepmother said to her servant, "Go, old man, and bring home my daughter so that we may bury her." Then she set about fixing the evening meal for herself and Yugishna. A short time later, the gate creaked, the doors flew open, and the old servant dragged in a chest heavy and deep. Maria followed, radiant and regal as a princess. When the stepmother saw all the riches Maria had returned with, she immediately set an extra place at the table for the girl. She sat her stepdaughter down, pretended to ask her forgiveness, made a great show of giving her the daintiest morsels, even though Yugishna complained about this, until she had gotten the whole story out of Maria. As soon as Maria was asleep, the old woman called her servant. "Old man," she ordered, "harness the horses and have them ready to go at the first light of dawn. Take my daughter to the same field in the very same place and leave her there. Then return for her in the evening to gather up the treasures she will receive." In the morning, the old woman struggled to awaken her daughter. Let me sleep, complained Igishna. It's too cold to do anything else. You must go and get treasures from Jack Frost, you lazy creature, her mother scolded. Can't we just take Maria's gifts for ourselves? Asked her daughter crossly. We will, said her mother impatiently. But why settle for one treasure when we could have two? Now get up. Grumbling, Yigishna did as she was told. She put on her warmest coat and hat and boots. When she was on the sled, her mother bundled her up in furs and blankets. Then the old servant drove her to the field and left her there just as the morning sun turned the ice crystals bright as diamonds. Yigishna sat on her pile of furs and tried to keep her eyes open. Suddenly, Jack Frost came prancing from the edge of the forest. Young woman, I am Jack Frost, the ruby-nosed, he said. Then be quick and bring me a treasure, said Yigishna, who thought he looked foolish with his leaping about and jingling bells and nose like an apple stuck to the front of his face. Young woman, I am Jack Frost, the ruby-nosed, he repeated. I bring the winter wherever I go. When you've brought me my treasure, said Yigishna disagreeably, you can go and take the winter with you. It's ugly and cold. Now where is my gift? Young woman, I am Jack Frost, the ruby-nosed, he cried, dancing closer to the girl, and here is your gift of diamonds and silver. And he stretched out his hands to Yigishna. In the evening, while Maria stoked the fire, her stepmother anxiously watched the door for the return of her daughter. Suddenly, she heard the creak of the gate outside. Without waiting, she flew to the door and saw the old servant standing beside the sled, cap in hand. Impatiently, the old woman pulled at the mounds of furs on the back of the sled. Yigishna, foolish child, come out from underneath. You'll be warm inside in a minute, but first show me your treasure. To her horror, when the woman pulled back the last fur, she saw her daughter lying there, a cold corpse. Silver snowflakes frosted her eyelashes, and ice like diamond ships beaded her lips where her last breath had frozen. The shock was too much, and the greedy stepmother fell down dead in the snow. Maria became mistress of the farm, where the old servant continued to serve her faithfully all the rest of his days. Ooh, that just gave me goosebumps. That one was creepy. That one was pretty creepy. I used to do silly short stories on Discord, but the Discord I did them on was deleted without warning. Oh, that's so sad. Super goosebumps. Did you get goosebumps too? The next one was okay, but I think we might skip it. I don't remember the next one either. Yeah, I think we're gonna skip the one after that too. It's so weird because like some of them I remember and some of them I just really don't. I want to pick a good one. Oh, I think I liked that one. So I think we'll take just a quick short break. I'll put on the spooky sounds, or not spooky sounds, the music back for a little bit, and I'll just be like really quick. Hello, we back. I'm just making sure everything was normal. Okay, here we are. Gosh, the screen is so bright. I wonder if I can change that easily. Probably not. That's okay though. Yeah. Oh well, it's fine. It's fine. Thank you for the welcome backs. I hydrated, used the bathroom. Oh, I should have grabbed a snack. Darn it. Oh well, it's like almost dinner time. I really shouldn't be having a snack. It's okay. But I'm ready for more stories. I hope you guys are too. The next one is called The Green Mist, and it's a legend from Lincolnshire, England. And this one's pretty good. I don't think this one's super scary, if I remember correctly. So it's more of just like spooky. Um, it doesn't sound too scary, like the green mist. So hopefully it's not. But here we go. In the good old days, folk believed that spring came to the world when a green mist covered the land and set seeds to bursting and made fields and trees and flowers grow again. Once there was a family more eager than the rest for the green mist to rise and put an end to winter. Their only daughter had grown sickly during the time of cold and snows. She had been the prettiest young woman in the village, but now she was so pale and thin and weak that she could not stand up on her own feet without the help of her parents or one of her brothers. Everyone else was sure she would die soon enough, but she thought that if she could only see the spring again, she would live. "Oh, mother," she would say over and over again, "if the green mist would only come, I'm sure it would make me strong and well, like the trees and the flowers and the corn in the fields." Her mother promised her that the spring would come soon enough, and she'd grow strong and pretty as ever. But day after day, the girl became weaker and more lifeless, like an early blooming spring flower when winter comes back and after a false spring. Each morning, they carried her bed to the doorway so she could watch for the first sign of spring, but the snows lingered and kept the seeds asleep, and the trees leafless, and the fields and flower beds locked in a frosty grip. Finally, in a voice hardly above a whisper, the girl said to her mother, "If the green mist doesn't come tomorrow, then I must die. The earth is calling me, and it will cover me soon enough. Oh, if I could only live as long as one of those cowslips that grow by the door each spring, I swear I'd be content." "Hush now, child, hush," her mother cautioned. "You don't know who might hear you say such a thing." The old woman knew that there were always bogies around, wicked goblins who made mischief and grief for their human neighbors. No one was ever safe. People thought these evil creatures they couldn't see were always spying on them and waiting to play their wretched tricks. Even as the woman looked nervously around, she thought she heard thin, piping laughter on the icy breeze, and the sound of that merriment came from no one of flesh and bone and blood. But her worries were quickly forgotten. The next day, the green mist rose like an ocean the color of grass in the summer sunshine, and as sweet smelling as the flowers in spring. It covered the countryside and roused the earth from its winter sleep. The girl, watching from the doorway, said, "Now I'll live." She sat in the sun and laughed with joy and waved to her father and brothers as they worked in the nearby fields. She grew stronger and fairer every day that the sun shone. Sometimes she would stretch her arms up to it as if she lived by its warmth alone. But when a cloud hid the sun, she suddenly became as pale and wispy as she had during the long dark winter days and nights. But there were more sunny days than not, and the cowslips bloomed by the kitchen door. Soon she was running about and laughing like her old self. Every morning she would kneel by the cowslips and water and tend them. Sometimes she would dance for them in the sunshine. Sometimes her mother would catch her just staring and staring at the fragrant yellow blossoms. Once, when the old woman leaned down to gather a bouquet of the flowers, the girl cried out, "Oh, mother, don't pick a single one." Why not? Her mother wondered. They're pretty enough growing where they are, and I feel that if you plucked a single one, you'd pluck out a bit of my soul with each blossom. The woman was deeply troubled by these words and the fear she heard in her daughter's voice. She remembered the girl's rash promise that she would be happy living just as long as the cowslips, and she recalled the thin piping laughter that had followed the girl's words. Indeed, her child seemed to grow stranger as the cowslips flowered. Yet she also grew more beautiful, and strong enough to do chores around the house or run errands in the village. One day, in town, she met a handsome young man who thought her the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. They talked a bit, and he asked if she could come and visit her. Oh, if he could come visit her. She smiled and nodded and told him where she lived. He came the next day, and they walked together for a long time, hand in hand. In the afternoon, they sat under a tree near the kitchen door. Because the day was sunny and warm, the girl fell asleep. While she dreamed, the young man gathered up the cowslips from beside the kitchen door and wove these into a wreath. Gently, he set it on her head, waking her up. At first she laughed, but when she pulled the wreath off her head to look at his handiwork, she was horrified to see what he had done. "You picked the cowslips to make this?" she cried. "Aye," he said, "a crown of flowers for the prettiest lass in the neighborhood." But with a moan, she snatched up the wreath and clutched it to her breast. Then she stood staring wildly around at the green trees and sprouting grass and the golden sun and the yellow cowslips most of all. Puzzled, the young man reached for her, but she gave an awful cry, like an animal in pain, and hurried into the house, slamming the door behind her. Nor would she open it when the young man knocked and pleaded with her to tell him what was wrong with his love wreath. After a time, he gave up calling to her and went sorrowfully back to town. In the late afternoon, the girl's mother, who had been visiting a neighbor, found her lying on her bed with the wreath of cowslips in her hand. The old woman put her hand to her mouth to keep from crying out. Then she sat by her child and tried to make her comfortable. But all day long, the girl seemed to fade, nor could her mother coax a single word out of her. The following morning, her family found her lying dead and white and withered, like the shrunken yellow flowers in the wreath still clutched in her hand. While the old woman clung to her husband and wept, she heard thin, piping laughter through the open window. Then she knew for a fact that the bogies had heard her daughter's wish. They had let her live as long as the cowslips, but had caused her to fade when the cowslips themselves had died. The end of that one. And this is why you shouldn't date young men. Exactly. You don't pick flowers, you buy them from the store. You can't go wrong with those. Oh my goodness. How could he have known though? How could he have possibly known that? I'm trying to see if the next one was a good one. Oh yeah. This one's pretty good. I think this one's pretty good. But that one was spooky and not too scary. I think the next one is kind of more on the scary side though. That's right, Robo. Nobody should date me. You never know. You never know. The next one though is a folktale from Costa Rica, and I think it's called the Segua. The Segua? I'm not sure if it's Segua or Segua. But I feel like I'm going to say Segua. I should probably take a hydration break though in between stories. Bunnicula, gotcha. Yes, that's it. That's it, 100%. Bunnicula. Oh my goodness. I remember Bunnicula. All right. Are we ready for I think this one's more scary. Pretty sure. screen a little bit bigger. Oh, I wonder if I could make it smaller so I could just see one page. Oh, yes, that's better. I like that better. I like the one page better. Oh, but then I have to put it like over here. That's okay. Perfect. I like that better. All right. Next story. The Segua. One evening, a young man from San Jose, the capital of Costa Rica, rode into a small town north of the city. He was on his way to visit the ranch of a friend situated in a lonely area, but he wasn't sure which road to take out of town. He decided to stop in the local cantina to quench his thirst and ask directions. When the proprietor brought him a mug of beer, he told the traveler he still had a fair distance to cover. But, the proprietor warned, no one travels these roads after dark. Stay here. I have a room I will let you for a few pesos. Then you can finish your journey in the morning. The young man shook his head. I have to reach my friend's ranch tonight. The older man shook his head. Only a fool would risk meeting the Segua. The Segua, the traveler exclaimed. What kind of creature is that? The cantina owner smiled, as if he was unable to believe such ignorance existed. Senor, he said, don't folks in San Jose know what the Segua is? She is a demon, and heaven keep you from meeting her on the road. I've never heard of such a thing, said the young man. Bring me another mug of beer, and please explain what you know about this Segua. When the older man returned with the beer the traveler had ordered, he brought a second mug for himself. He sat down across the rude wooden table and said, no one who sees the Segua is left with a sound mind. Strong men in the peak of health have gone mad from the sight. Some have even died of fright. He began to rattle off the names of locals who had lost their minds or lives because of this monster. But the younger man interrupted him, saying, If she is such a terrible devil, why haven't I heard of her before? She prefers certain parts of our country. We have the misfortune to be one such place, explained the proprietor patiently. For that reason, no one here rides alone after dark. If someone must travel after nightfall, he always goes with a companion. Why, doesn't she like crowds? Laughed the young man, who was beginning to feel the effects of his long ride and the beer. The Segua only appears to someone who travels alone, said the older man gravely, finishing his own beer and starting to rise. She appears as a beautiful senorita, smiling sadly and fluttering her eyes, pleading for a ride. But woe to the traveler who stops to help her. If the unsuspecting rider sits her in front, she turns her head. If he has placed her behind him, she will make him turn to look at her. In either case, his doom is sealed. How so? The traveler asked. When he looks, the beautiful senorita is gone. The creature riding with him has a huge horse's head with monstrous fangs. Her eyes burn fiery red like hot coals, and her breath stinks like sulfur. With a hiss, she will bury her claws in the shoulders of her rider and hang on like a wild animal. A horse, sensing that he is being ridden by a demon, will bolt in such frenzy that no one can stop him. What then? Asked the younger man, no longer smiling quite so broadly. Those who are found the next day, if they're still alive, will have gone mad from the sight of her. Nonsense, said the traveler, suddenly standing up and tossing down a few pesos to pay for the beer. I must be on my way if I'm to reach my friend's ranch tonight. The older man shrugged, gathered up the coins, and turned away. Clearly, he thought, there is no arguing with a fool. Yikes, I will not let her ride with me. Oh my gosh, rude, right? At least, maybe, I don't know. I don't know what he's worried about. What is so important that he needs to get there tonight? Especially after hearing that, I'd be like, okay, I'll wait. I'll wait. Oops. Oh, I lost my place. Oh, there we go. You would wait too? Yeah. I would take his offer, spend the money, get a room. I mean, horse lady riding a horse sounds like a sight to see. Yeah, she just has a horse head with fangs. Riding a horse. Riding a horse. Oh my goodness. What am I hitting? I was hitting something. Yo, dog, I heard you love horses. We do love horses here, so this is the perfect story. Double horses. We get double a good horse and a demon horse. Because that's what we always wanted. All right, are we ready to keep going and find out what happens to the traveler? We'll find out. Two sides to every horse head. There you go. All right, here we go. The little town square was deserted. The traveler untied his horse from the hitching post and set out along the road the cantina's proprietor had pointed out to him earlier. It was a warm night. Not a breath of wind stirred the leaves in the trees on either side of the road. Nothing disturbed the silence except the clop-clop of his horse's hooves on stones in the roadway. Suddenly, around a bend, when the town was out of sight behind him and no other building was visible, he saw a slender figure standing in the thick shadows where the trees overhung the road. Slowing his horse, the young man discovered a beautiful girl with a pale face framed by the black lace mantilla that covered her head, and which she held under her chin with her left hand. In the moonlight, he could see she had curly black hair, huge dark eyes, and deep red lips. "Señor," she began. Her voice was sweet, but so weak and weary that he feared she must be near fainting. "I am so tired, but I must go see my mother who is ill. Would you take me to, I don't know how to say that, Bagaches?" "Of course," he said, bringing his horse to a stop and climbing down. Bowing slightly and removing his hat, he said, "My friend's ranch is just south of that town. You can spend the night there. In the morning, I will escort you the rest of the way." "You are very kind, señor," she said, in such a faint whisper that he had to lean close to make out her words. Then he helped her onto the horse, which had grown restive during their halt behind his saddle. He mounted himself, and they took off at a good trot. A breeze had arisen to freshen the still air and flutter the leaves on the nearby trees. The moon and stars tinted the landscape pale silver. Several times the traveler tried to make conversation with the woman, but she didn't answer. She only leaned her head against his back and clung to his shoulders with her hands, as if she were afraid of fainting and tumbling from the horse. Abruptly, his horse, without any prodding, broke into a gallop. The woman dug her fingers into his shoulders, clearly afraid of falling. The young man was too polite to tell her that her nails were digging into his skin. The horse gave a cry and charged down the dark road as though something terrible were pursuing them. The traveler pulled back on the reins and shouted, but it did no good. His horse only galloped faster. Oh my goodness. Doesn't he remember the story? I know. Like, why are these people being so dumb? Men, am I right? He's a fool. Oh my gosh, he is though. He has a terrible memory apparently. Like, what are these people doing? I'd ride faster and run as fast as possible, but she's on the horse with him. Like, I think he put her behind him. So he would have to like jump. He would have to jump. But then she'd probably kill him anyway, right? She'd probably kill him anyway. Let's see. It's showing me a picture. It's kind of cool. Of him and the demon riding the horse. It's like all skeletal. It's kind of cool. But let's see what happens. Let's see if he lives. Suddenly, he felt razor-sharp teeth lock onto his neck so that only the collar of his coat saved his skin. An instant later, he heard a cry that came from no human throat as the awful teeth pulled away a mouthful of his coat collar. He wrapped the ends of the reins around the fingers of one hand, and with his free hand, he struggled to pry loose the fingers that were clamped on his shoulder. As shadow, then moonlight, then shadow again washed over the horse and its two riders, the young man saw that the fingers clutching him were too pale. They were the white of bone rather than fair skin. He heard another screech and smelled the creature's foul breath. He felt his strength giving out, while the bony fingers pulling at him seemed to grow stronger. The jaws snapped at the back of his neck, this time drawing blood. Then, ahead, he could see his friend's ranch. He thought he could hear dogs barking to signal his arrival. Lights were burning in the hacienda. There were figures running up the road toward him carrying torches. There was a final ear-splitting scream from the demon behind him. He felt his whole body jerk backward, the hand that was tangled in the reins pulling backwards suddenly, causing the horse to rear up, then fall sideways. Both riders fell with the animal. The traveler was knocked senseless for a moment. When he came to, his friend, holding a torch, was staring at him, asking if he was all right. He nodded, still shaking from his near brush with death. When he touched his hand to the stinging at the back of his neck, his fingers came away bloody. He looked around hastily, but all he saw was a crowd of friendly-looking campesinos, countrymen, watching him. One was calming his horse, which was on its feet again. "Where is it, the creature?" he asked his friend. "What creature?" "The Segua." "My friend," laughed the other man. "You stayed too long at some cantina, I think. The Segua is a story to frighten children, nothing more. Still, next time you ride at night, be sure you travel with a companion. These lonely roads can be dangerous in the dark." The young man said nothing, but he shivered just a little when the night breeze brought the lingering odor of sulfur to his nostrils. He should have listened. He should have listened. Yum, coat collar. It was a hungry demon thing. It was. It was. Just hangry. Yeah, a hangry monster. 100%. 100%. It was hangry. It just wanted a snack. He didn't listen. He should have listened to the story. At least all he got was a bite taken out of his neck. It's fine. Moral, listen. Yeah. Actually, listen. Colie was just a story about you being super hangry one night. I mean, it could have been. It could have been. I do love horses. It could have been me. Oh my gosh. That's nuts, though. Oh, I think the next one's pretty good, too. I think the next one's pretty good. I feel like I could just read stories forever. I love it. I love it. I feel like this folktale is teaching us not to be a free thinker. I know, right? You just listen to everybody else. Don't do what you think. Just listen to everybody else. It goes both ways are a choice. Just in time for elections. Oh. Perfect. The next one. Oh, so the next one is The Ghostly Little Girl, and it's actually a story from the United States, specifically California. Okay. The scariest story of all, dear. Oh my gosh. It really is, though. It really is. I remember this one being pretty spooky too. Not like scary, but more spooky. So I like the spooky ones. Cause for me, I'm not a super like horror, gory kind of person, but I love like a thriller, like suspense and just like a thriller. Almost fell asleep until an ad woke you up. Oh, I hope my voice is so calming that it's putting you to sleep. Welcome back from naps and ads. Heck yes. Heck yes. And thank you for sitting through the ads too as well. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I wish I could make this bigger without going to the next page. There we go. All right, I'll do one more hydration bit and then we'll start the next story. Do you get trick-or-treaters? We didn't do it last year. But I remember seeing in our camera that we got like barely any kids. So it's kind of unfortunate, but it's also so we're not even I don't think we're gonna give out candy. We're just gonna watch Hocus Pocus 2 later, which will be really fun. I have to prepare in a few, but loving these stories. Oh my gosh, no worries at all. It starts at 5:30. Nice. So okay, I forgot it's like a specific time frame. If I nap, it wouldn't be comfortable still sitting in my chair in front of my computer. Oh no. But I'm leaving a bowl out. Oh, nice. That's good. That's good. That's good, though. Do you guys get a lot of trick-or-treaters? I did have a piece of candy today. I had a little Twix bar. A little mini one while I was at work. I did hear Luna earlier, but I guess she did not come in. Hardly any. Aw. Yeah, I don't think we get very many. Like, at all. All right. I like your Halloween shirt. Thank you. I love it too. Somebody today, they came in and said, it was kind of like, I didn't know if it was a compliment, but they were like, you win the ugly sweater award. I was like, oh, thanks. So, I mean, I think it's cute. I think it's cute, but she thought it was ugly. She thought it was ugly. Oh my goodness. I hope you guys are having some good snacks and treats and foods. Yeah, I was like, all right. You should have replied with, what should I have replied with? You win the. Yeah, you win that award. Oh my goodness. It was like her and her friend, and they brought their kids to the library for trick-or-treating. Got her. Oh, I probably would have been fired. I probably would have been fired. But that would have been a great response. That would have been great. Oh my goodness. But so worth it. So worth it. All right, guys. We're going to get into the next story. The ghostly little girl. Here we go. Okay. Near the turn of the century, in the seacoast town of Monterey, California, there lived a widowed fisherman, Richard Coulter, and his young daughter, Maria. Their home was a weather-beaten shack of boards with a tin roof on the shore some distance from town. Maria Coulter was a pretty but strong-willed little girl. Her father worked hard, fishing for sardines, salmon, cod, tuna, and yellowtail in Monterey Bay and the Pacific Ocean, just beyond, so that Maria could go to the Catholic school in town. She was very popular with the other girls who were pupils there, though a few parents did not approve of someone whose father was so poor. Maria's closest friends were Annie Kelly, Susan Cook, and Catherine Hopper. In the early spring, Maria was absent from school for several days. Her three friends asked their teachers about it, but were told only that Maria and her father had sailed out of Monterey Bay 3 days before. Their boat had last been seen by another fisherman around noon beyond Point Lobos. But I saw her this morning on my way to school, Annie Kelly told Susan Cook and Catherine Hopper. She was standing across the street watching me. I waved to her, but she didn't wave back. I don't think she saw me because she ran away right after that. I didn't see her again. But once again, Maria's desk at school was empty. As her three friends walked home, they talked about her absence. Maybe her father is sick and she has to take care of him, Annie suggested. Maybe she got sick herself, Susan said. Maybe she was starting to come to school today and had to go home. I think we should go and see what's happened to her, said Catherine decisively. The girls knew their friend lived with her father in a shanty outside of Monterey. They decided to pay a visit as soon as school was over, but it was a long walk and they took their time poking along the beach. It was very late in the day when, far down along the shore, they could see a single cabin, the back of which was built on stilts that extended down into the water. I'll bet that's Maria's house, said Annie. I hope so, said Susan, because it's getting pretty late. I'll be in trouble if I don't get home by supper. Maybe we shouldn't go, said Annie. I don't see any lights. Don't be silly, said Catherine impatiently. We've come this far. But it is getting awfully late, added Susan. I just want to see how Maria is. Then we can go right home. But by the time they reached the rundown shack, a thick, wet evening fog had crept in, heavy with the tang of salt. Walking softly and whispering to each other, the three friends climbed the stairs to the rickety front porch. It was piled high with rotting fish nets, rusting crabbing cages, buckets, and odd bits of rope and canvas. Around the corner of the house, they could see a little pier, but no boat was tied to it. Everything was quiet except for the roar of waves hitting the shore. I don't think there's anyone home. Let's go, urged Annie, as the haunting call of a seagull cut through the foggy air. The mist was swirling so thickly around them that they could no longer see the distant roofs of Monterey. Tentacles of fog were tangling in the live oaks and pines far up the hillside. Don't be a ninny, hissed Catherine. Boldly, she knocked 1, 2, 3 times on the door. When there was no response, she pounded on the door even louder. Let's look through a window, suggested Susan. This seemed a good idea, since clearly no one was coming to answer the door. Tiptoeing to the nearest window, the girls peeked in past ragged curtains. At first, all they saw was an empty room, with a few sad pieces of furniture scattered around. An unlit kerosene lantern stood in the middle of a wooden table. Opposite the window was a single closed door. Suddenly, a strange glow began to seep under the door. Then it opened slowly, and they could see Maria Coulter framed in the unearthly light. She was standing upright, but her eyes were closed as if she were in a deep sleep. Without a sound, the girl, like a sleepwalker, crossed the room. A moment later, the 3 friends on the porch heard the cabin's front door unlock with a loud click, then pulled open with a squeal because the damp had swollen the wood. Annie, Susan, and Catherine looked at one another for a moment. Then they went to open the door and peered through. The room inside was empty again, with only a faint silver-gray light coming through the streaked windows. The door in the far wall was closed, though they could still see the line of curious light underneath it. Their friend had vanished. She must have gone back into that other room, said Susan. Why is she playing tricks on us? Asked Annie. I don't think we should stay here anymore. We're reading scary short stories. Okay. But Catherine walked bravely into the room and yelled, Maria, we just want to say hello. You can come out. She was reaching for the knob of the closed door when something stopped her. There was a smell of salt water so strong that they could almost taste the salt. The odor of fish was strong enough to make Susan hold her nose. The roar of the ocean filled the room as though it was circling the house outside. Catherine, Annie said, her voice little more than a squeak, look, the door. Water was beginning to seep under the door, soaking the worn carpet. The 3 girls stepped back, afraid to let it touch their shoes. Abruptly, they were startled by a crash like a huge wave hitting the other side of the door. It amazed them that the door didn't splinter from the impact. A moment later, a second blow shook the door. The 3 friends just gaped, too frightened to move. In the silence that followed, broken only by the gurgle of the water still seeping out under the door, they heard a ghostly voice from the other side of the door. It sounded like someone calling from underwater. Catherine, it called. Annie, Susan, I knew you'd come looking for me. I'll be with you in just a minute. There was a last boom against the door, then a deep silence fell over the room that smelled of fish and salt and seaweed. The door began to open. There was silver light all around it. The puddle of water on the floor looked like a tide pool in the moonlight. They saw a little girl's hand, pale as whitefish, wet and wrinkled, as something that has lain in the water too long. Terrified, the girls ran from the shack as fast as they could, out into the thick, wet fog. They didn't stop running until they were back in their own neighborhood. There, while they caught their breath, they tried to make some sense of their frightening experience. Had Maria been playing a trick on them? If so, why? But that didn't explain the strange light and the sound and smell of the ocean coming inside the house, or the crash of waves against the closed door. Finally, confused and frightened, the girls decided to tell their parents what they had seen. It was Catherine's father who told them. Richard Coulter's boat sank 3 days ago. They found his body washed ashore near Point Lobos. His little girl Maria drowned with him, but they haven't found her body yet. Spooky! That one was spooky. Don't be silly. Hi, Matt. Oh, I thought she was talking to Luna. I could have been, but it was Matt. It was Matt. He came home. Luna was in here too, but she left again. She left again. Spooky AF. Yes. Oh, I think the next one is good too. I like the next one too. And I think it's another like spooky one, not like super scary. I'm loving these stories though. They're so good. I hope you guys are liking them as well on this Halloween night. I love this little book of short stories though. It's pretty good. It's got some good selections in there. Oh my gosh, my eyelashes tonight. Not it. Okay. The next one is called The Midnight Mass of the Dead, and it is a Norse folktale. So here we go. There once a very there was oh my gosh. Redo. Redo. There was once a very devout widow who lived in a small village in Norway and went to church every day. For many years, Juliana would go with her friend Berta to these services. When Berta died, she went alone. One Christmas Eve, she thought she would go to the early service on Christmas morning. Since there were fewer people at this Mass, she would sit nearer the altar, feeling close to the Christ child on this holiest of days. Before she went to bed Christmas Eve, she put out coffee so she could have something warm to drink, but she did not want to go to church on an empty stomach. Oh, because she didn't want to. Juliana's alarm failed to wake her, but she roused herself out of a deep sleep sometime Christmas morning. Moonlight was streaming through onto the bedroom floor when she got up. She looked at her little alarm clock, but it had stopped with the hands frozen at 11:30. She did not know for sure what time it was, so she went over to the window and looked down the street to the church. Light was shining through all the windows, and opening her window sash for a moment, she was sure she could hear singing carried to her ears on the chill breeze. She hastily set the coffee boiling while she dressed. She downed a cup of the strong black brew, then got out her long pink cloth coat, lined and trimmed with rabbit fur, which she only wore on special occasions. Tying a white scarf around her head and gathering up her prayer book, she set out for the church. Oddly enough, it was very quiet on the street, and she did not see a soul on the way. Usually Christmas morning brought many to even the earliest services, souls who might otherwise never go to worship during the year. When she entered the church, she found a pew near the altar. But when she glanced around, it seemed to her that all the other people looked pale and strange, though she was not rude enough to stare at them. The woman on her right had deep circles around her eyes, as though she had just gotten over some terrible illness. The man on her left clutched the back of the pew in front of him with fingers so long and thin they hardly seemed to have any flesh on them at all. It seemed to Juliana that there wasn't anyone kneeling around her that she knew, yet she had a feeling she had met many of them before, though she could not say where or when. She settled back into the hard wooden pew along with the rest of the congregation when the pastor left the altar and climbed half a dozen short steps up to the pulpit. He was not Pastor Solvold, nor any of the city ministers she was familiar with. The visitor was a tall, pale man who preached quite well. Again, she had the nagging feeling that she knew him from some time long ago, but she could not place him. He spoke of death and those who lay waiting the resurrection under the Christmas snows and who grew impatient with eternity. Juliana found his themes morbid and not at all the message of joy and hope she expected. The preacher rambled on, and she became restless, shifting uncomfortably in her pew. As she let her mind wander, she realized that there was not the noise and coughing and throat clearing that she was used to hearing at an early Mass. The silence was so absolute that when she nervously dropped her prayer book, the sound seemed to boom out from the altar to the choir loft, sorry. The preacher paused and stared at her with red-rimmed eyes that had no trace of kindness in them at all. Juliana picked up her prayer book, but she was feeling so uneasy that her hand was trembling. When the preacher had finished his sermon, he led the congregation in a hymn. The music was strange, and the words were unfamiliar to Juliana. Leaves have their time to fall, and flowers wither at the north wind's breath, and stars to set, but all, thou hast all seasons for thine own, O death. She was so uncomfortable that she could not get any words out. She was aware of the woman on her right and the man on her left staring at her with the same intensity as had the strange pastor. Suddenly, while the singing continued, a woman who was sitting behind Juliana leaned forward and whispered in her ear, "Throw your coat over your shoulders and go quickly. If you're still here when the Mass is over, you're finished. This is a service held by the dead." Now the widow was so frightened she wasn't sure her legs would support her, but she recognized the voice of the woman who had warned her and turned around. It was Berta, her friend, who had died many years ago. In a flash, she realized that the pastor and other members of the congregation that she had recognized were persons who had died in the parish over the years. She shivered from terror, but Berta gave her a shoulder a reassuring squeeze, so she pulled her coat loosely around her and got up to leave. Oh my goodness. Brave Prosciutto, hello, welcome in. Happy Monday, happy Halloween. How are you doing? How is it going? How has your weekend been? I had a really good weekend. I had a really nice one. How was yours? We're doing some spooky stories today on this Halloween night, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I hope you guys are loving it. Does anybody have a favorite story so far? We'll do a little hydration break. Disney, hello. Hello again. Happy Halloween. Can I get a shout out for Disney? Disney was playing some Nancy Drew, Treasure in the Royal Tower earlier, and it was super fun. I'm all good, got checked over by a dentist, and my only bad tooth is the broken one. Oh, well, that's good. That's really good. That stinks, though, that you have a broken tooth. The rest are perfect, so getting it yanked on the 29th. Oh, heck yes. Well, I'm glad it's going to get taken care of. And also, thank you for the shout-out for Brave Bushido as well. I have loved these. Woohoo! On Senior Detective. Oh my gosh, you were doing it on Senior? Heck yes. Treasure in the Royal Tower is one of my absolute favorite Nancy Drew games. So I was so happy to see that you were playing it. Woohoo! Oh my gosh. I don't know how many stories I'll be able to read today because I know at some point my voice is just going to go. So we'll see. We'll see. I wish I could read them all. Honestly, I really wish I could read them all. Can you, what are we going to have for dinner? I'm going to get hungry. Okay, go ahead. Do that. Do that. All right. Are we ready to find out what happens to this woman on this spooky church mass night? Oh. All right. Colie already had a bacon cheeseburger. I did. So I made myself one for lunch today. It was delicious. It was delicious, but I'm getting hungry because that's all I had. I didn't make anything with it. So, I can only do so much. We need food. We do. It's a necessary thing to alleviate the hunger. All right. Okay, here we go. But just as she reached the aisle, the woman with the sunken eyes and the man with the bony fingers began to screech. These ghastly figures turned in the pew and snatched at her. Like a sea that has suddenly been churned by the winds, the crowd of horrible, pale churchgoers rose in their pews and began clamoring toward the aisle. They yelled and moaned and scratched at her, their hands like claws, with dirt and mold beneath their cracked yellow fingernails. Sobbing, "No, no, no!" Juliana pushed her way down the aisle. Just as she shoved her way through the doors and out onto the church steps, she felt her coat pulled from her shoulders by the creatures chasing her. Without giving it a second thought, she let them have the coat and ran down the steps into the windy street beyond. The moment she reached her own door, she heard a clock somewhere chiming 1. She fumbled out her key, unlatched the door, and slammed it behind her. Half dead with terror, she set about lighting every lamp and candle in her room. Then she sat on the couch, determined to keep watch through the small hours of the night. But exhausted as she was, she fell asleep. Juliana awoke late in the morning. Most of the candles had burned themselves out. She fell asleep with the candles on? Oh my God, sorry. Only a single lamp was still burning on the mantle. My throat is already going. Through the gray light, she heard the church summoning the faithful to Christmas morning services. Had she dreamed it all, she wondered? But when she went to put on her favorite coat, she couldn't find it in the closet. Putting on an old black coat, she went out into the street and was greeted by her neighbors, who were hurrying to Mass. Yes, she told herself, it had all been a nightmare, and she had simply misplaced her coat. She would find it soon enough. She had to force herself to mount the steps and enter the back of the church, for all that it was crowded with friends and neighbors. But she turned and fled when the sexton came up to her and saying, I think this is yours, isn't it? I've seen you wearing it at church before. He held out to Juliana her pink cloth coat with the rabbit lining and trim that had been torn into 1,000 strips. Super scary. Colie needs sustenance. This is facts. How dare she? The cause of the fire were these stress release candles. Yeah, and that's how she died. Just kidding. Just kidding. Oh my goodness. So the next one's pretty good, but let me see how many we still have. Maybe I'll recognize oh, wait a minute. I think this one's good. Yeah, I think this one is good. Wow, you're dark. I don't care. This one is called Scared to Death, and it's based out of South Carolina. One of Disney's favorite exchanges. V wrote it, did she? You never know. You never know. I do love it a lot. I just say the same quotes all the time. Do I go outside? I don't know, car, do you? Sounds dangerous, car. Oh, and see if my neighbor will say hello. She may throw punches. She may. You never know. It's Halloween, car. Are you going to risk it? Are you going to risk it? Throw grenades in return. Yeah. Throw grenades in return. Wait, let me see what. I'm definitely getting hungry, though. Wow, there's a ton of stories in here. I like this one, though. This is a good one. Car opens the door. You want some of this? She's crazy. I left the chair with some candy. You know that one kid is going to just grab them all, right? But I love the effort. I do. With a bear trap under the candy as the trick for the kids. Yes. 100%. 100%. You reach in here, you die. Or you lose a hand. It's great Halloween spirit. There's always that one kid. There is. I took 3 extra? I love it. I love it. I love it. Does anybody pass out candy but keep their favorite candy to themselves? Like they don't put that candy out? Because I would 100% do that. For you, yeah, yeah. I would be like, saving these for me. You can have those. 100%. Okay. Are we ready for the next story? Of course. Yes. I love it. All right. So this one, all the way from South Carolina, is called Scared to Death. Ready? Some 10 years after the Civil War, the old Charleston mansion named Roseway was ablaze with lights and bursting with music. An orchestra hired by Stephen Hayward played waltz after waltz in the huge ballroom in honor of his daughter Sally's 18th birthday. Sally, however, had quickly grown bored with the whole affair and had steered a cluster of handsome young men and beautiful young women to the open area at the foot of the magnificent staircase. There she stood, rearranging her pale yellow skirts that rose, ruffle upon ruffle, to her waist. Her bare shoulders were adorned with a single fall of jet black hair, which tumbled over her left shoulder. A perfect red rose was pinned to her bodice, setting off the whiteness of her skin. Uh, Okay. Nuggets, yeah. Even if she hadn't been mistress of Roseway since her mother's untimely death, or hadn't flirted so outrageously, Sally would have easily drawn the attention of the young men now gathered around her because of her beauty. Her dark eyes, ivory skin, and bubbling laughter charmed men of all ages. At the moment, however, she was quiet. She was looking unabashedly at tall, dark Peter Buford while listening intently to what Alice Cardross, his fiancée, was saying. Breathlessly, Alice informed the little cluster of friends. When our carriage passed the graveyard tonight, both horses reared up. I declare I was so frightened I almost lost my wits. I'm sure nothing serious was at risk, said Sally with a wicked little smile. Gallantly, Peter said, It's certainly spooky there. I've heard the place is haunted. Yes, said Sally, sounding even more bored than before. We've all heard stories, but have you ever seen a ghost, Peter? Don't you believe in ghosts? Asked Alice, in a voice barely above a whisper. Not at all, sneered Sally. Only simpletons hold with such foolishness. My manservant saw a ghost standing by old Daniel Payson's tombstone, said Peter. That's the tallest grave marker, the one that tilts to one side. The ghost was the image of Daniel Payson, who's been dead 4 years. Bosh, said Sally, with an airy wave of her hand. Your man dreamed it, or was frightened by a shadow. You'd never catch me going into the cemetery after dark, said Alice, holding tightly to Peter's arm. Why? Whatever on earth is there to be afraid of, really? Wondered Sally, ignoring Alice to stare into Peter's face. Peter, who seemed equally uncomfortable with Alice clinging and Sally's boasting, said, Come now, Sally, you wouldn't go in there after dark, and you know it. Nonsense, Sally retorted angrily. I'm not as foolish as some people I know. She looked pointedly at Alice. Alice, aware that Sally was making fun of her, cried, If you're so brave, I dare you to go into the graveyard alone. Tonight. Right now. Oh, very well, said Sally offhandedly. Peter, will you escort me? She stretched out her hand to take his. But the young man put his arm around Alice's shoulder and said, I've never been a man to tempt fate, Miss Hayward. Nor would any of the other young gentlemen surrounding her risk the unknown terrors of the churchyard, even for a chance to escort the lovely Sally. Then I'll go alone, snapped Sally pettishly. The dead couldn't be any more dreary company than the rest of you. She sent one of her servants to the cloakroom to fetch her wrap. Wait, said Alice. She ran after the servant and returned with Peter's walking cane, which had a gold handle shaped like a goblin's head. While Sally was putting on her wrap, Alice thrust the cane at her, saying, Take this and plant it in the ground by the old man Payson's crooked tombstone. That way, we'll know in the morning that you really went there. Since my word isn't good enough for you, Miss Cardross, Sally said nastily, you'll find the cane in the morning when the sunlight gives you enough courage to look for it. Then, gathering her long cloak around her, Sally Hayward swept out through the front door and into the night. She marched along the moonlit sidewalk to the cemetery, slashing at the air in front of her with the gold-tipped cane, furious at the memory of how Peter Buford had defended his fiancée Alice Cardross against Sally's best efforts to belittle the other woman. And she grew even angrier at the thought that he remained unmoved by Sally's charms, in spite of the fact that she had flirted with him throughout the whole evening. Sally pushed open the high iron gates in the churchyard wall and stepped through. Inside was complete darkness, except for an occasional tall grave marker gleaming palely in the moonlight. Dimly, the young woman could see the outline of the church steeple on the far side of the cemetery. Though she couldn't make out the face of the clock in the tower, she clearly heard it chiming midnight. Up until this moment, Sally had been angry and not in the least bit afraid, but the thick, chilled darkness pressed closely in on her, creating shadows that seemed to writhe and clutch at her when she didn't look directly at them. Deciding with a last burst of resentment that this was the wretched end to an already spoiled evening, she wrapped her cloak more tightly about her and searched hastily for the crooked tombstone. A part of her was ready to cut and run, but Sally was strong-willed enough to force herself to make good her boast. She would plant the cane before she left or die in the attempt. Keeping this thought in mind, she searched up and down the narrow rows of tombstones until she discovered the crooked marker shining faintly in the moonlight. Excuse me. Sorry. She raised the cane to thrust it into the damp soil below the marble slab, then froze. A sigh, then a loud moan, came from the blackness just beyond the tombstone. A sudden gust of wind, chill and smelling of damp and mold, rushed past her. She was certain that she could hear something coming for her. Something that moved stiffly and wetly and never drew a mortal breath. Stifling a scream, Sally thrust Peter's cane into the ground, then, gathering up her cloak, she turned to run. Something caught her, something held her and wouldn't let her run. She heard a moan and smelled the breath of the open grave, but the more frantically she struggled, the more firmly the horror held her in its grip. Too frightened to scream, she clawed frantically toward the narrow aisle of tombstones that led back to the gate. But something was tugging at her throat now. In a final spasm of terror, she flung herself forward, only to feel herself dragged back toward the crooked tombstone. At that moment, something burst in her head, and she sank to the ground, mercifully unconscious. When Sally failed to return, Peter and Alice led a party of anxious friends and relatives into the churchyard. There, they found Sally a short distance from the crooked tombstone, dead, her eyes wide open in fear. The end of her cloak was pinned solidly to the ground at the foot of the marble slab, held in place by the deeply planted cane with the gold goblin's head. The unfortunate young woman had scared herself to death. To this day, people talk of two ghosts that haunt the old churchyard. One is the tall, shadowy figure of a man. The other is a woman in a pale yellow dress with a long cloak who wears a single red rose in her bodice. I like that one a lot. Here we go. Scared to death. You're outside for a little bit? Nice. Very nice. I think it's supposed to be actually nice out today. It was, anyway, when I was out. Let me see here. I want to see if I can raid out. I know I was watching Erin earlier play Blackmore. It looks like she's still going. So I think we're going to raid out to Erin because I don't know how much more my voice would be able to handle anyway, as it was clearly already going. And let me get my raid messages in the chat. First one, if you're vibing. Second one, if you're subbed and vibing, please join me on over to the raid. And thank you so much for hanging out while I read, because it was a really fun first reading stream. I've never done one, and it was really fun. But thank you guys for hanging out on this Halloween night. I hope everybody has a fun, safe rest of their Halloween. And the next time I'll stream will be on Thursday this week. We will be doing some more garden story, as it's been forever since I've played. I don't even honestly remember what we were doing, but it's fine. You're welcome for the stream. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Again, thank you so much. And next week on Sunday, I will be doing my 3-year stream anniversary. So please, I would love to have you there. It'll be super fun. It's Stranger Things themed. And I hope everybody had a wonderful October. And I will see you all on the next one. Bye, friends. Happy Halloween.